Hello and welcome to Sim Strategy Gaming. I'm Sim. This episode will be about the third chapter of the campaign of Railway Empire 2. Looking at our mission objectives, we see that we are going to deliver 12 loads of lumber and 8 loads of corn to Topeka, transport a total of 250 freight cars, and then advertise settler bonus in Topeka. Now, these settler bonuses are a bit expensive, but I would say that they are more than well worth it. Topeka now only having 1,000 citizens don't make for a lot of express goods, and passengers and mail bags are by far the most profitable thing to be doing in Railway Empire. And to have this cities growing extra fast is well worth it in the long run. We have built now a sort of a peculiar solution. There is only one line. We only could afford one line to go around this economic zone that includes Kansas and Nebraska, that I will refer to as the Kansas zone. But and one might think that it will only be possible to have one train on a single line. But if one has directional signals and make it go in one way, then one can put on a lot of trains. So I put on 3 separate lines here, all starting in the connection bonuses. One in Topeka, one in Wichita, and one in Cole here, so that the connection bonuses will come in as fast as possible, and later on we will expand this into becoming a proper 2-lane track, so that transport can go in both directions, now only possible in this clockwise direction, and later on we will have a counterclockwise direction. In addition to the circular zone, we have added upon these freight-only dedicated lines, one going from Thompson into Topeka, because Topeka particularly needs wheat for its breweries, and one from Miller here with lumber into Kansas. And then we are going to deliver in the mission objectives lumber to Topeka, but later on, as the connection bonuses come in, we will add on warehouses, the maintenance depots and such that we cannot afford right away. Also one coming in here from Stevens with wool for the beaveries in Kansas, and then from Edison with livestock into Omaha, and from Rice with livestock into Wichita. In the 2 later instances, I have made for a separate station. I could have connected it right in here, and then I would have no need for building 2 maintenance depots later on. But I always place these, when building a circular path, I place the station so that they point outwards, so that if one builds upon it later on, one would usually want to expand this by at least 2 or perhaps even 4 or 6 or even 8 lines. And for every line that is added, if the curvation becomes tighter and tighter, one might end up having a situation where you have these extra long gridirons that are not really particularly beneficial, because gridirons cannot have too long of a curvation. So I would very much recommend building them outwards, and then I didn't want to go back and delete and do too much of a change with these stations. And we're also going to build later long line, the express lines, sort of from Omaha to Wichita. That would include vegetables here in the middle, and also bring some of these fruits down to Wichita, and then we would need to have this inner line here. With our locomotives, we have reached a very excellent INU. I'm going to use for the most of the game. Be a little cautious about upgrading and having this class 121, because if I research this, then the express statuses that I very might easily achieve on the INU would be challenged by the greater speed of the this express train. Two options for having freight trains in the beginning, at least. The consolidation would suffice more than enough, and it's a little cheaper and a little less maintenance requirements than the better Baldwin 10-wheeler that we might upgrade to later, but I have great faith in the consolidation, and I think that's an excellent train, at least in the beginning, and trying to save as much money as possible. When it comes to bonds, I always go for the maximum amount, and sometimes one can have two of these little bonds and then one of the greatest bonds to maximize the amount of money that one can have, paying a little bit of interest on this, but the interest rate is much less than what I can make from the money that I borrow. So then, about 6 months later, we have been able to achieve our first set of mission objectives, and we are now going to focus further on Topeka, growing it and making 7 different goods available at the same time. That will, and also bring in this fruit from Wichita. We now have built warehouses so that we can see now how the goods are being distributed here and here. 2 wheat resources coming into the same line. That would not create any problems because there aren't any demands on the end of the line. And it's always great to have wheat, particularly a lot of demand for wheat, and then to have that coming in on 2 separate places. And we can see now how all the cities are satisfied, and that Dodge has actually been able to grow already into becoming a proper city. Still on a single line here, and because we had need to have more trains. Like this, you can see that they're all pretty much filled up, and then also we have built a lot of maintenance depots and warehouses that were also a little bit expensive. We're still in the process of building up our railway empire, included this Bishop lumber resource up here, all with the consolidation trains. You can see now that some of these trains are waiting now to be filled. Don't want to have them go back and forth with half full or empty loads, so they're put on this minimum of 8 wagons. And now, a little more than a year into the game, it took that much of a time to be able to have enough money to build a proper 2-lane track here, so that we have now trains going in each direction, making for a much better system. The loads and the trains, the passengers as well, they will always take the shortest trip, so that to have it going in both directions are way better than to have only one-way tracks. But then sometimes that's what you can afford is what we can afford. Looking at the mission objectives, we see that we are now going to deliver the We already founded Dodge City, and connecting 10 rural businesses was already in the plan. So now we're going to focus further on Denver. But we can see how we made the mission objectives that we had to deliver fruit to Wichita. Built this extra line in the middle that included the vegetables here, and also now 2 different livestock resources for Omaha and Wichita, which are producing meat. And then to have this extra little line here, particularly dedicated one that goes straight from Thomas, where we have the fruit, and down to Wichita, where this was needed due to the mission objective. Otherwise, fruit will be distributed on this main line, but no matter which direction the main line goes, that would take too long time, and there will be too little production in compared to the demand, so that say Kansas here would eat up the fruit long before it reached Wichita. And in the other direction, North Platte is also eating up a lot of the fruit on the way. So then sometimes it is better to just build a special line that takes the mission objective requirements straight down to where they are needed. We're going to delete that line later on. Also included this sugar resource down here in Nolan. We can see now how it nicely distributes all over the net. No need to put everything onto the main line. The main line is mostly perhaps for passengers and mail bags, but if it goes straight through a nice resource, I include that on the main line as well. And so just a few months later, not so much have happened since then, but we built on this extra in accordance to our mission objectives to transport passengers from Topeka to Denver. Built on this extra line here that has a bridge that goes over our competitor zone. A little bit expensive, but not too expensive. More expensive to build bridges with the general that we are playing with now. He has this down-to-earth ability. Really good character with this 10% higher revenue from freight and mail, can really be recommended. And also lowered construction costs. But one should be careful about building too many bridges and tunnels with this character. But we can see now that we've added upon this extra line here, going from Topeka to Denver, and this will be the start of a new line that will go around a new circle outside the inner circle. And sometimes it might be a good idea, I think, to have one inner circle that picks up a few of the resources and perhaps even cities in the middle, like here in coal. This is included in the inner line, and then build a new outer line that goes parallel to that, parallel tracks being cheaper than the original tracks. So then we will have our new mission objectives very soon. That will require us to buy a beer factory and also found 2 cities. This connecting citizens to a railroad network, that is almost achieved right away, because with these circular paths, then all of the cities are growing very nice. We're not focusing on one or a few particular cities, we are focusing on everyone. So then our revenues and our general growth will be good with this strategy now. with beer. Having a look at the flow of goods, we're going to produce 3 beers per week. And then we have this big one up here, smaller one down in Dodge, and also a small one in Topeka. But the Topeka is particularly nice. It has wheat coming straight into it. And it's too small anyways, and Dodge is too small, and North Platte is in many ways too big and has also wheat coming directly into it. So I think the Kansas, I will buy the poorest one. We have too much production of beer. We have a surplus here, so it might be good to buy up the one that we don't need. And one way to do that, of course, one we can come in here and then just buy it up straight away, but it costs kind of a lot. And if one doesn't have the money for it, a smart trick here would be to go into all of the lines that are picking up here and prohibit them from picking up the resource that we are going to buy later. Because if then that will cause the factory to choke as soon as it has filled up its local storage, then it won't produce anymore. And then as it doesn't produce anymore, it runs with a loss, and then it becomes cheaper and cheaper. That will take some time, but we can see that there's a maximum export warehouse capacity for 24. And as soon as it has reached 24, it will drop in its production, and then it will become cheaper and cheaper all the way. So that's sort of a nice trick for having cheaper purchases. And of course, after that, when we have bought it, we can demolish it, which I intend to do, or we can put on the trains back in to be picking up the production again, and thereby making extra money from it. Now, we were also going to found a total of 2 cities, and it might be tempting to focus on Cheyenne here, buying up the Wyoming territory concession and then focus here. But then, I don't know, I don't really want to have that big of a zone here. I think I should rather go from Denver to North Platte, and then there will be no need to buy the Wyoming territory right away. And it's also this that the general isn't really good at building bridges, and then to have to circumvent or doing something here in our competitor's zone. So this, of course, is a very reasonable option to be buying Cheyenne, and I think that in our mission objectives, they say that, note, you can build tunnels and bridges in your competitor's track is in the way. But down here in Indiana, with Oklahoma, there aren't any competitors in our way. And the concession is cheaper, and there's a lot of nice resources there. So I think I'm going to head down south to Indiana and make more money from this flat, nice territory than I would make if I went into Wyoming and challenged both our competitor and also all of these mountains up here in the northwest. So then, by July, left most of our existing infrastructure rails in the north, more or less as they were, and focused solely on buying up the Indiana concession and building up Oklahoma. That will come on very nicely now, only lacking one lumber resource, which is coming in directly here. Oklahoma have wheat immediately next to it, so the meat was no problem. And from Wichita, a direct line here, double line, bringing both the passengers' mail bags and particularly the meat. There's a lot of surplus meat in Wichita. And also an extra specially dedicated lumber delivery line. And with these 3 resources, that's all one needs to grow a settlement into becoming a city. None of the other resources have anything to say when it comes to raising a settlement into becoming a city. And a city, of course, being way, way more profitable and more important than a settlement. So as we do this, we achieve that set of mission objectives. And now, for our new set, we are going to conquer the Ratoon Pass, building a station there, which will have a dispatch hall, and then have an express status between Omaha and Camp Ratoon, and delivering these weapons. This will all come on pretty nicely, but one should pay extra heed to delivering 4 loads of clothing to Denver, because Denver doesn't demand any clothing right yet. They are too small to be having a need for a fashion industry. Actually, kind of way off. We need 24,000 more citizens. So then, not only focusing down here in Ratoon, bringing these weapons, it's tempting to be bumping this up to the max, but then it costs 3.5 million, and the weapons would only be used for this particular mission objectives as soon as someone has delivered 40 weapons. The weapon factory will actually disappear. So perhaps not focusing too much on that. I think I bump it up to level 2, maybe level 3, and then leave it with that. I'm going to delete this special lumber line, and then rather relying on lumber coming in from a warehouse there in Wichita for Oklahoma, so that it isn't in the way of the weapon deliveries that will go along here on the Wichita, Dodge, and further on to Camp Ratoon. And then with this express line from Omaha to Camp Ratoon, I think I'm just going to build a single straight line, making it absolutely as cheap as possible, because that mission objectives entirely interflict with the way that these circles are built, and I much prefer to have these circular zones that I think are more tangible and easier to set up the warehouses and sort of keep everything in a zone, rather than to have all these crisscrossing lines that are often not so very profitable and very often also interflicts with each other, so that one has to build bridges or even tunnels to be in order to achieve it. You can see how Oklahoma is getting its resources through a warehouse, mostly through the warehouse in Wichita, so that it will grow on nicely. Not all of the resources, but then later on we are going to focus on building more of this down south, a lot of lucrative little settlements and cities down here that can be grown into becoming proper. So then, a little bit more than 2 years into the game, we have made for all of these previous mission objectives, building up Camp Ratoon, having an express status between Omaha and Camp Ratoon, delivering all the weapons that it's needed, and also finally Denver had reached a proper size where it would demand clothing. So now for our last set of mission objectives, that I'm going to put on for a little bit of time, because if I went straight for the mission objectives now, that would mean that I wouldn't expand all of the map, and I really like to include all of the cities and all of the resources and make for a proper nice whole system in here in Camp Ratoon. Built for this long line here that went from the weapon depot that has now been removed. So there are no need to have this anymore, and certainly we're going to do some changes there, delete this part of the line at least, and then this enormously long single line here with only one train on it. That doesn't give back much money because this line costs kind of a lot, and there it goes over. We had all these bridges to it, and it's well, really long. And then there aren't that many passengers coming from Omaha that are going to Camp Raccoon. Only 7 per week, a little bit more mail, and it takes some time, so we don't really need that. We're going to delete this. But then I was also, in order to grow Denver properly, that are now 2 arrows coming on really nicely, 90% fulfillment of demand. That is absolutely marvelous. And it's now part of this 4-lane system that I built up that goes around all of this bigger zone, not only including this. There's still this original inner circular zone with Nebraska and Kansas, but now there is a Nebraska-Kansas Colorado territory zone, a really big one that includes Denver and then brings Denver in connection with all of these other cities that have already grown into becoming quite nice and big. In order to have this line here, then I separated Oklahoma, so that Oklahoma is now on its own separate system, but are connected in Wichita, so that the passengers here on this Wichita South station is connected to the Wichita. Perhaps this should be Wichita South, actually, like this. And then here I will call it Central instead. I think it's really nice to have proper names for this station and to have good order as I go through and see that everything is properly functioning, so that all of the cities have good names, easy to follow, easy to see what I have been doing. I have now a lot of have enough invention points to reach this class 121, but I put that off for some time, because as soon as I take this, then I see all the nice express bonuses that I had on these Inu trains. They disappear, and then I don't want that. So perhaps, but then I would need to choose at some point the class 121 in order to be able to reach the Brox module and all of the nice other techs that are here. But then I put that off. I might put that off for too long a time, but there is at least a thing to be thinking about if one wants to advance further on into having new, particularly express trains, because they would challenge the already existing express bonuses. Can I have a quick look at the flow goods? Flow goods being very important. We'll make more money from passengers, but in order to have these passengers, one needs to bring all the goods to the cities so that they can grow. And I'm particularly fond of growing cities and seeing how the effect of my my rail network has on the place where I'm building it. Made for a little weird warehouse up here in Anderson, to have this that I can come back and forth and down into Cheyenne. It is a little bit of a challenge sometimes setting up these warehouses, and make sure that they don't interflict and have little yellow warning triangles on them. You can see here how this is going. Lumber coming, yes. No need for this particularly dedicated lumber line to Omaha. It would be better for Omaha to have it, but then things can be often spent more wisely on general systems. So then now I have 6 lines, double lines of trains going between this lumber resource here up in Kansas that brings down lumber into the warehouse in Wichita and further on to Oklahoma, and that these lines that are on the central zones, they can do a lot more of other things. So there are usually no waiting or no empty trains. You can see that there are most of the trains that I have are pretty much filled up, and this is of course very important, very good to have them as full as possible to make sure that you're getting the most out of the rails that one builds. And then by December, 3 years into the game, takes a little bit of time to build it all up, perhaps too long a time. I haven't really been focusing a lot on the primary mission objectives that are down south with Albuquerque and Deming, as I wanted to build up everything, all parts of the map. So I can see now that Oklahoma, the little line between Wichita and Oklahoma, has been expanded into this Indiana territory circle here that includes Dodge, Wichita, and Oklahoma. And then further south, it has included Lubbock, Abilene, Dallas, Oklahoma, and Amarillo, so that it will all come very nicely along. This is a very nice and profitable zone, but it opens up too late in the game for really to have a proper impact. I would have been getting more points from just going straight down into New Mexico. That is the actual mission objectives, but then it's fun to build it all up. Also with Grand Canyon here in Wyoming and the rest of Colorado, made for these 2 lines actually, one from North Platte that connects on here and goes up here to the cement and further on to Anderson, and then all the way to the Rocky Springs and Grand Junction, which is coming on quite nicely, and then another double line going down to Cheyenne and further on to Denver. We are going to buy up our competitor, and that takes some money, and of course as soon as one have all of these cities growing, we will have more than enough money to outcompete our competitor and buy him up with these. But I might be overexpanding a little bit because I like that, and money is sort of an appealing thing to have. Here in the middle, where there used to be only one double line coming from Wichita to Omaha, I've built on this what I really like to do inside of these circles that might be a little big, to have sort of a cross. We can see that this is a cross, Omaha, Wichita, and North Platte, Dodge City, and then in between here on these resources to have hotels that are running quite nicely, so that it's actually possible now to go from the different cities in different directions. You can see with the train usage that they are being used not as much as the circular path, but still being absolutely useful, and then also including everything. Same here, not here in Stewart, but here in Anderson, There is a hotel that is also having at least some passengers. All of these crossing points, not here because this is a freight line, the northern outer path, but everywhere where passengers are traveling and there are a split in a resource, then it would be very advisable to have hotels. Should perhaps check up on the flow of goods now. Things are starting to becoming a little bit complicated and perhaps hard to see where everything is going. You can see this wheat resource here, built a special little line from Topeka down to Kansas in order to pick up this milk in the middle, but then not only picking up the milk dedicated, but to have these lines doing a mixed sort of tasks. I think there are some passengers here. Yes, a few passengers are using this, as well as mostly goods. But the wheat then from this resource south of Topeka is going to Kansas, but not further on to this Texas zone, because Texas is already being served by its own wheat resource south of Oklahoma. But then it might be good to have it coming in, and perhaps even some of this wheat will go up to Dodge, even though the shortest path will be from Topeka. Sometimes if these trains are full, and they will fill up really quickly now, then it might be advisable to have an extra warehouse where wheat can go, perhaps in a longer way, but at least it will reach the destination. So one can see here in Rocky Springs, Grand Junction, wheat is coming in through this warehouse here in Anderson, with corn being nicely distributed. I took the chance on trying to bring this corn down here from Rocky Springs and all the way, but now we can see there is a crisscrossing tendency where the corn from Rocky Springs are feeding all of this big Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado circle, while also the Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas circle has its own corn resources. Then later on, at least I will have to watch this very carefully. 15 coming in now. It might soon fill up on both sides, and then they will start to fill up each other, and then there will be a problem that one has to pay the heed to. The game doesn't show this so very clearly, so one has to go in and sometimes go through all of these warehouses, checking that there aren't any of these warning triangles. Would have been perhaps nicer to have them show up immediately, but one just have to pay heed to that. So that was corn with lumber. You can see how these lumber resources, they are both on the same system, as they are just being transported directly into the system. Texas having its own lumber, and then also this Grand Junction part having its own lumber that is not being transported into any other systems. You can see now how the lumber here from south of Kansas going through Wichita into Oklahoma, but there are also a second option to go through Topeka and onto this line that is also being used, even though the game doesn't show it quite clearly. It only shows the shortest path in order to avoid the entire confusion. Meat. So the meat is very nice and evenly distributed, which is the best. So one doesn't need the warehouses. Here there are no particularly need for this the warehouse, because Camp Raccoon doesn't really require it, but still wheat can now go from this inner Nebraska-Kansas circle and on to, say, with Denver, so that it's possible for it to switch. If inner circle train picks up the meat here, it can then switch in Dodge, even though that doesn't show on the flow of goods chart as such. Beer, lots of beer all over the map. Would have been tempting to bring down some of the beer here perhaps and have an extra warehouse in Oklahoma, but I think I left that out for now. Also smart little tricks to come up with, but then very often one can outsmart oneself with having too many warehouses and too many connections. Sugar also being nicely distributed. Texas has its own, and Oklahoma having now through Dodge, and also being part of the Texas circle as well. Cloth, really nice to have this cloth there up in Rocky Springs, serving these western parts. And Kansas becoming a huge weavery factory, able to supply not only this biggest circular zone in the middle, but also bringing some excess to Wichita into the Indiana zone. And then there is also one in Lubbock. Milk, not too much milk on the map, but this one comes in very handy here in the eastern parts, bringing milk all over our empire. Rest of the milk, some here that are still locked, and then we have also one the nice big here. This seems to be interflicting, and I might have actually done a bit of a mistake here, and should perhaps turn this off here, but so far it isn't a problem just yet, so I'll leave it be for now and rather come back to it later. Trying to remember all of these weak points, or perhaps writing them down on a little piece of paper next to you, so that one can be checking up on the warehouses that are perhaps becoming a problem, or perhaps not. It's not so very easy to be absolutely clear about this thing, but as one grows accustomed to it, one sort of get a feel for it, so that one can pay heed to the warehouses that might have a problem. See now how this goes all over the map. Where are the rest of the and then there is one here in the middle. This is sort of a cool thing, to have one that is only serving the middle parts, and one that is serving the outer parts. If one has this circle with a cross-in structure, this now serves only, it seems to be serving the same cities, but these two resources are actually not interflicting. The one is serving the cities from the outside, from the circle, and this one is serving pretty much the same cities, but from the inside, which makes for a good solution where I don't interflict, and where cities have being fulfilled from two different sides. And this one serving all of the southern parts that aren't that much in demand for fruit yet, but there are at least these Wichita, Dodge, and Topeka. Topeka has been growing really nicely as of late. And then there'll be one fruit resource up here in the north that takes care of the northern regions. And also Grand Junction has been getting its own fruit that serves the western parts. Okay, so let's move on to the last stage, where we're going to conquer New Mexico and deliver all this steel and chemicals to Deming, and had grown Deming into becoming a proper city that can produce planks. So let's see how we did. Not too bad of a score. Spent some time, 3.7 years, but it takes a little bit of time to fill up all of the map. I think there will be lots of people that were greater than this. Actually, the first time around I did better than I did now, but then I didn't fill up all the map quite as nicely as I did now. Left most of our infrastructure as it was before. I would like to notice and point out this. This is not, I would say, my fault that this one breaks down. It is now aiming for Clark. Where is Clark? Really? It's here. And why do it skip Rocky Springs? And probably it has been skipping a lot of stations before that, because it has run out of maintenance almost entirely. So when building two long lines, I see that there is a tendency in the game that these trains start skipping stops, even though I cannot really understand why they're doing it. So I try to keep things, the lines not too long, and preferably circular. But see how we did with the our mission objectives. First, the express status from Denver to Albuquerque. I made a split here, so that there are now one set of lines going north. Would perhaps have been tempting to take that northern line and just build upon it here and built it further down south, but that would make for a lot of problems, I think, to have a line going all the way from Grand Junction around Cheyenne, down to Denver, to Raccoon, and all the way down to Deming. That would certainly make for a confusion with the trains and a lot of unnecessary breakdowns and loss of revenue. So, and also the trains would have to be updated when I changed the routes. So then I just added on a new station, going from Denver to Raccoon, build this funny little station here that doesn't pick up any particular goods, but only serve as a hotel interchanging spot. So seem to be any passengers there, but that there might be sometimes that you can hook it on to another line like this, so that there is the long line going here from east of the Rocky Mountains, from Deming to Denver, is also hooked on to a line that goes from Dodge to Nolan, Lewis, and onto the line in question. Built this also little extra circular path here. Might have been a little bit too much, but then I wanted to connect all of the passengers, all the cities to each other. Built for hotels. This one is running very nicely. Here in Lewis, also an incredible amount of passengers that is being transferred from northern zones that we have already built and down further south, not through too many crisscrossing lines, but rather to have this zone here in the middle that doesn't include other cities than Raccoon and this little camp Raccoon, but still there is a lot of traffic passing here, and they can pass through it in either direction and being brought on further down to this New Mexico main circle here, so that we can see that there are a lot of passengers and traffic going around here. That wouldn't be entirely necessary, because this main line from Deming to Denver to Albuquerque is sufficient for our mission objectives to be achieved. But then it's nice to have a circle that also connects the Texas connected with Texas, and also connects through the rest of the system through this ratoon little circle here. With the mission objectives, to deliver the steel came on quite nicely, as there was iron up here in the west, being brought down to Santa Fe along with the lumber, sugar, and salt. And then this coal resource up here now brings sufficient amount of coal through a warehouse in Ratoon down to Santa Fe, where it's needed to be melting the iron into steel. So only one steel mill was required for that, and that was already built by the computer. There was no reason to buy it up or even bump it up. It came on okay enough. With the chemicals, perhaps a little bit more challenging, and I also think that there will need for now only 12 of each, but still that came on a little later. I had to build this one here up in Dodge. That was sort of a long way, and but this coal resources is now shared by both Dodge and Santa Fe, and then I wanted to hasten this a little bit, so I built one bigger chemical plant in Lubbock, and then Deming isn't really part of this New Mexico circle. So then, in addition to the long line going up here to north to Denver, I also built for a southern line, 4-line system that goes from Amarillo to Deming. That brings in extra passengers and revenues. Now there will actually be a full 8-lane system. That's really something extra that brings in the chemicals. But in order to get the coal into Lubbock, then to have it coming in from here, I built an extra line that goes like this. One of these goes further on, so that and then if one has these circles and the circles are separated by different stations, it's absolutely possible to be putting a little dedicated line in between, and particularly with these chemical factories and steel mills, one would like to make absolutely certain that they get the needed resources, whereas one would have multiple million credit investment just standing there, not producing anything, waiting for the general system to bring on these goods, which might be too little. Looking now at the flow of goods, we can see that at least Deming, not being part of any particular circular zone, is still getting everything that it needs. Beer was actually kind of far away. That could go to a warehouse in Amarillo, and also being transported from the other end of the line from Denver. Sugar coming in here from this little auxiliary line, this freight line in Santa Fe. Lubbock producing the cloth that is needed, and then it doesn't need anything more than that right now, but still it gets its milk from the Ratoon circle, and vegetables coming nicely in, and then having imported from the Texas circle this the fruit, and then producing planks, and then it's important that it has places to export the planks, so that the export warehouse doesn't fill up. And then here in the book having a warehouse so that it can go on to the Texas zone, which is starting to require, at least here with Oklahoma, and I think also Dallas is starting to need planks for further growth. Yes, just about now started to need to demand planks. So, and the New Mexico zone being, say we're just going to test one of these. Let's say with Amarillo. Where does Amarillo get its things from? Lots of wheat coming in, corn coming in from both sides, lumber also as well, milk, two sides. Lubbock is producing enough cloth. Both Texas and New Mexico has its sugar. A little bit low on beer, as I mentioned, but still it's coming in all right. And then it has its own, it has vegetables in New Mexico and fruit in Texas. And then also, there's the crisscrossing tendency, and much more to take care of that. It's typical that when one builds one of these new factories, one has to update this. So now there might be coming a problem with Wichita supplying, say, Abilene or Lubbock. Wichita was supplying Lubbock, while simultaneously Dallas is supplying Dodge. Then there might become a problem here, so I might have to turn that off now that I built this new fashion factory down here in Dallas. Well, I guess that pretty much sums it all up. We can see that the trains are becoming red, and after some time of growth, of general growth all over the map, there will be hardly any way of keeping up with train capacity. So, but then we have achieved all our mission objectives and seem to have come to an end. So, thank you for watching, and everyone can feel free to like and subscribe, and I can look forward to see you the next time around. Goodbye.